Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor and his slightly silly paper as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode 498. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good. You're older and none the wiser.
Yes, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Yes.
Actually, now you have wished me happy birthday a day early, and now you've wished me happy birthday a couple days late. So...
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, Sean.
did,
Keith got the jump on you, so I think he went a whole day ahead of time. Just make sure it was the first one to wish me happy birthday.
my flux
so lost on
capacitor
what
was
day
on
it
the
is lately.
I got that. I think it was Saturday, and Sunday. I got that Sunday. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I thought, should I tell him he's a day early? Nah, I'll just leave it. Yeah, so Monday was my actual birthday, but Sunday actually was appropriate, Keith, because that's when we celebrated. So we went over to my folks.
Well, see, there you go.
Yeah, we went over to my folks and celebrated Father's Day and my birthday, and had cake and sandwiches for lunch, and played some games, and it was pretty fun. Good afternoon, good day.
Nice.
Then I had to work on my birthday, so
Not so nice.
yeah. Did you guys do anything?
How was everybody's Father's Day? Did you do anything exciting for that? I mean, Glenn had cake.
Yeah.
That pretty much trumps everything I did. So, cake always is, oh, you had cake. Well, I'm not even going to bring it up now.
We set up the backyard pool for the kids. They had fun.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
Liam
when
wasn't
can I
too sure
expect
about
my
it at
invite?
first and then got really into it. I don't know if you'd fit, Sean. It's one of the kiddie pools.
And
Maybe you only could be in the pool.
I will hum the Jaws theme as I circle.
You might be a struggle to circle.
I'm not sure if I should be insulted at this point or not.
It's a small pool, Sean. The one time I've gotten in it, I couldn't move about.
What are you trying to say, Keith?
You're tall. You're a very tall man.
Either Sean is sorely underestimating the size of this pool, or Keith is sorely overestimating the size of Sean.
We watched a movie.
What'd you watch?
What'd you watch?
Luca.
So did I. What do you think?
The new Pixar movie. We really liked it. I thought it was really cute.
It is cute.
It wasn't quite the tearjerker that most Pixar movies are, I didn't think, but it pulled some emotional heartstrings and had a lot of fun. I really like the animation style. It really harkens to Aardman films in the way they designed the characters. It's good. I highly recommend it.
It's weird in a way, because obviously I'm all about the theater going experience, and how much of current streaming scares me in a way with how things are being distributed. But I will say that I think Disney Plus might be the best thing that Disney's kind of come up with, because it has definitely benefited Star Wars and Marvel and Pixar. I think in Pixar's case, it's going to allow them to be a little more experimental with films like Soul and certainly Luca, because it almost has a different feel to it than some of the traditional Pixar movies.
It definitely does.
But I think it also benefits from the fact that, there's not, that pressure is not there. They don't have to sell a bajillion toys and worry about the box office numbers. It's just go tell a cute story. And that's where it falls. It is a cute story. It's just a wonderful little summer movie.
Yeah, it's not one I would have gone out to the theater to see at all, but because it was, included in the subscription, it was one that we watched pretty quickly because the kids were also interested in it. So that makes a difference too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really cute.
Glenn, you haven't watched it yet?
No, not yet. I don't. For some reason, my watching schedule for things has been really weird. I mean, we've been watching all the. Maybe it's because we've been watching all the Marvel films. We've just kind of been in that groove. I haven't really watched anything besides that.
What are you up to now? I think last time you were up to Black Panther.
Yeah, we watched Spider-Man: Homecoming this week. Yeah, this is working out very well because we had Civil War a couple weeks ago, and then we watched Black Panther because it follows right on the heels of Civil War, and we watched Spider-Man: Homecoming this week because it follows right on the heels of Civil War, and we're going to watch Doctor Strange, which doesn't necessarily fall right on the heels, but it's between that and Infinity War. But we should end up with Black Widow the following week, so we'll have done all of the films that chronologically are set before Infinity War. So we actually we've kind of paced it out just right so that we hit Black Widow just right about where it should be. So because everything I've been reading says it takes place right after Captain America Civil War. So that's all
We decided
I've
we're
done.
gonna we decided we're gonna cheat when before Black Widow. We're only going to rewatch Captain America Civil War. Just because.
How's that cheating?
Oh, come on! It's a new Marvel movie. You got to do the whole MCU. Right?
Oh, geez, no. I wish that were true. The only reason we're doing it this time is because we've had such a large gap between them. No, most of the time I just watch the things that either directly correlate or lead up to them. So
it feels like, well, I mean, certainly with, of course, the last couple that we had were, Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Right, so, and I did. Yeah, that was a big watch lead up to those for me.
How many films we got to rewatch? 23. Okay, let's go.
Right.
But gonna take it a little easier this time out. I think I'm still fresh enough off those. That, although I don't know, I watching the premiere episode of Loki really had me wishing that I had gone back and rewatched Thor and the first Avengers. Because I had to keep resetting my brain going, it's not that Loki. It's in a different spot in his timeline.
The nice thing is I was right off the heels of that, so I had refreshed recently on those.
They would do something and I would stop and go, hey, wait a minute, that's oh no, never mind.
It is nice though that this Loki got sort of a catch up on the rest of what his life would have been with that videos. So
lie.
So
I watched the documentary Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street.
Oh, I've heard that's good.
It is. I don't think it's quite as good as the what was the name of the Mr. Rogers one? Won't You Be My Neighbor? I don't think it's quite as good as that one. But it really does a good job of focusing on the kind of the early years and how Sesame Street came to be and then went on to change the world. And there were some tears shed, not gonna lie. But it's worth a watch.
Anything else?
I finished reading Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good, which is book 2 in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. And it was not as good as the first one, unfortunately. No. It took its very long time to get to where it was going, and I'm not sure the payoff was worth it. But also, a lot of it was set up for the third book, too. So it's going to be a kind of wait and see how the third book pays off to see if book 2 was worth the journey or not. But the biggest problem with it was there wasn't enough Thrawn in the Thrawn book.
Now, is this another one that's from Timothy Zahn?
Yes, he wrote this one too.
So I'm curious if he has it in his contract that he's the only one that can do Thrawn, unless it's for TV or something. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, if they're gonna have someone write it, they might as well have him do it because he especially something like this, where it's not like it's Thrawn in in the Star Wars galaxy. It's Thrawn in his galaxy, dealing with his world and his society. So it may only make sense to have the guy who created it and thought it all up write it all. So, and it's very well written. It's just the story kind of drags, and you spend a lot of time with other characters you don't really care about. At least I didn't, and just wanted to get back to Thrawn and kind of the core characters that he established in the first book. And there's not enough of all of them.
Oh. You'll have to keep us appraised and let us know if that payoff winds up being worth it.
Yeah.
I hope so. Like I said, I hope it does. But the third book has got a lot to do, because I feel like it has to also to set up why he decides to go off into quote-unquote lesser space and join the Empire. Because I don't think that was ever thoroughly explored why he went and did that, other than whatever excuse he gave to the Emperor and everybody else that asked. I feel like there should be more to it than that.
Is it just me, or I was kind of under the impression that for whatever reasons that were not clearly described, but that Thrawn was actually thrown out. That while he was essentially loyal to the Ascendancy and whatnot, that something had gone awry and he was asked not to come back.
Yeah, you kind of get that impression, I think. It also kind of seems like he's also on like an undercover mission too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can't be thrown out and be on an undercover mission. So it's kind of which is it?
Well, I don't know. Thrawn could be a lot like the Joker. It's multiple choice.
That's true.
Anything else? Well, we have some sad news to pass along to everybody, because I mean, if you're a fan of the series and listen to the show anyway, you're probably already aware, but Doctor Who star Jackie Lane, who played Dodo Chaplet, she passed away today at the age 79. And unfortunately, her character, I think it wasn't treated well on Doctor Who, which is a shame. And I think that's why, one of the reasons she never came back and ever actually, reconnected with Doctor Who in very many ways. But I think she made a small impact on the series herself. She did have some good parts. I thought she was very strong in at least what we see or hear of her in The Celestial Toymaker. We reviewed that reconstruction and the little piece of that episode that remained, or that story that remains. And I thought she was fairly strong in the arc myself, but unfortunately those are about the only memorable episodes. I know she was in The Gunfighters, which I thoroughly enjoy, although I don't think that she was a strong part in that. But
yeah, that's for sure. I never disliked Dodo. I just don't feel like I got to know her well enough as a character.
She was definitely short-shrifted as a character, and it's unfortunate that the opportunity is now gone to explore that.
All right. Well, that's on a happier note. There was a actor who returned to the fold, as we say, in Doctor Who, and that was Christopher Eccleston, who is back as the Doctor in Big Finish's fairly recent release of the Ravagers box set, which is the first Ninth Doctor adventures.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Ninth Doctor Adventures, Volume 1, Ravagers.
I'm back! I'm really back in the TARDIS. You did it, old girl.
Endless possibilities and events. Future, past, and everything in between.
I have done the thing! Temporal thing, radiating from the TARDIS like nobody's business.
Doctor, I honestly don't know how this could have happened.
Come on, get in.
Oh my God!
It's all right. It's all right. Don't panic. I'm not panicking. I wasn't talking to you. Centurion!
Did you just fall out of the sky or something?
So,
Yeah.
So you lied to her.
I meant what I said.
Doctor! If you can hear me, you better get here soon!
Run for it, lads! Run!
But if you stay here, waving your swords and spears around,
You'll be blown off the face of the earth.
that macho enough for you?
He's really done it now.
Nova! Hang on to something! Sir! Stop this!
I couldn't agree more, Doctor.
Audrey, no! Put that gun...
How can this be inside your police box?
Perfectly reasonable question.
Target! We're being overrun! We've got to withdraw!
That sounded a bit polite for a giant mechanical monster.
No idea, sir. I just...
The hell are these people?
Just quiet, please, all of you!
Sort of terrifying.
Pretty much sums it up.
What if they grab you and try to wipe your brain?
They can try.
Whoa.
Right. Shall we get on with this? That's not just amazing, it's... fantastic!
Big Finish. We love stories.
I was waiting for Sean's bum. Is that's usually my indicator of whether Sean liked it or not.
Sean is he's a little on the fence on this one.
Really?
This one particularly, or the whole box set?
The whole box set, in a way, there are definitely things that I liked about it.
Okay.
I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
First and foremost was Christopher Eccleston. It felt so good just to be back in that vibe. In fact, I didn't even recognize him initially when he started talking, because we're dropped right into the middle of the adventure and things happening and there's action and it's very fast paced. And I'm like, my brain initially was, okay, I got to get in gear. What is happening? Oh, wait. Okay, that's the doctor. Okay, cool. And once I caught on to that, oh, okay, great. Because he's awesome. He hasn't missed a step. He hasn't, he still got it. He still sounds just like the Ninth Doctor, which is, not age difference as we have discussed in some Big Finish, but just, he sounded energetic and he was having fun, and it all came across in his performance. So that aspect of it was just phenomenal. Really, really enjoyed that. I thought Audrey was very interesting. I thought Nova was a great companion in auditioning. And there were many elements of both of their characters that I kind of wish had been explored maybe just a little bit further, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed by what we were given. I think the plot was a little needlessly complex to fill up 3 stories.
That's my complaint with it too.
Yeah,
I'm
felt
right
a
there
little
with
bit.
you.
Okay, it felt a little bit like they were leaning into the self-actualizing or bootstrap paradox, that this was all, going to be the Doctor's fault. Mm-hmm. Which I kind of globbed onto that early. That okay, well, we're not necessarily telegraphing it, but we're telegraphing it that this is the setup for this. So then the question will be, when does the Doctor catch on to this? And I kind of kept hoping I was wrong. That as it unfolded, it was like, oh, come on, anytime now, Doc. You can see that this is not going to end well, and you're doing it anyway. Oh, and you gave her the codes for the thing. Oh, no. And it just, anytime I wind up being smarter than the Doctor, I feel cheated. If it's, Columbo and I figure it out ahead of time, well, that's a bad example, but if it's a murder mystery and I figure it out before the detective does, I feel good about myself, because it's like, yeah, I'm pretty smart. If it's the Doctor and I figure it out before he does, I think it might be borderline poorly written, because that's not a situation as a human I should ever find myself in. So, but I don't know that it was a, it wasn't a bad enough foible to have me write off the whole box set. I would probably still give it a da-na-na, just because it was a lot of fun to be back in this time frame.
I would agree with everything you say about it. It felt very much very predictable going through, at least to the aspect of figuring out that, oh, this is something that was caused by the Doctor. I think the other thing that I'm getting a little tired, and maybe it's just because I just happen to be hitting on the stories that are doing this device, but the whole idea of going back in time to fix something that was screwed up the first time in time. It seems like we've at least I've been listening to a bunch of stories or reading a bunch of stories or being my train just derailed at station. Been inundated with these, these stories of the Doctor going back in time and creating these loops, or going. It's almost like a Moffat 11th Doctor. I don't want to say cheat, because I think Moffat did it sparingly, and he did it well. But it seems like, and not that these stories aren't good that I've been listening to or reading or taking in, taking in. They're still good stories, but it just seems like there's this group of writers now that feel like this is the thing to do, to have the Doctor go back in time to fix things that, and it's a tired trope for me now. And so that was one of the things that bothered me about it. And it's probably not Nicholas Briggs' fault per se, because I just happened to be coming across all these different stories, but the majority of them have been Big Finish offerings, and I think that tells me that there might be a mindset there that they don't, maybe a hive mind writing idea indirectly. I don't think they know they're doing it, but I think that they're, like, through osmosis getting the idea for their stories to do similar things, and again, not purposely. And that's why I say I shouldn't blame Nicholas Briggs for it, but it feels a little lazy, to be honest. I mean, if you're going to be able to
and in
use
the
time
bonus
to
features,
fix
Nick
time,
Briggs talks about how.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I lost you guys for a second, so I thought there was silence. In the bonus features, Nick Briggs talks about how he's become kind of known for non-linear storytelling, so it kind of makes sense that you would have that problem with one of his stories.
Yeah.
I think it's a weird kind of flip reversal, because I seem to remember, and this has obviously been many years back in the fog of the long, long ago, that we would talk about, well, why couldn't you just fix it? You have a time machine. That we would wish for this ending, that we would wish for them to be able to set it up and just take care of it. And then every now and then we get that ending, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, you did it. And now it seems like every time we get that ending, because it has almost becomes a trope. And as you said, Glenn, maybe it's just that we're managing, because we jump around. Maybe we're just managing to lump all these type of stories together in a row with our reviews. I remember we inadvertently did a bunch of historicals in a row at one point, and that was like, oh, another one of these. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's a hive mind mentality that you start feeding off of each other, and those ideas stick around.
I don't want to undersell Eccleston in this role. I think that I think the amazing thing to me, and I probably wasn't giving him enough credit, and I apologize to the actor for this, because I've for so many years had a bit of a grudge against Eccleston, not his Doctor, but him personally, because he's been so standoffish with Doctor Who, and he's been slowly kind of, I think he's been slowly exercising his own demons. I think he's slowly been kind of coming back into the fold, showing that he does have an appreciation for Doctor Who. He does have appreciation for what he was able to do with the character. And I know that he had a really difficult time on set. I know he had a really difficult time with the production crew, and that could sour anybody on a project. But I've always it just felt like he could put that to bed, sooner than he has. And so I think in my back of my mind, I kept thinking that he would probably kind of come into this and not give it 100%, that he would come in as professionally as an actor and do the job. But I just in the back of my mind kept thinking, is he really going to give 100% to this? Does he really, really want to be back in this role? And from the get-go, it was the Ninth Doctor. It was he didn't miss a beat, and of course he is a professional. He does know what he's doing, but it really felt like he was having fun as well. It felt like the character, you could sense that he had put on a pair of old shoes. And I think I've said this about a lot of the doctors that slip back into their roles so easily, and I'm always surprised. But this particular time I was even more surprised that just because of the baggage that he was able to just really, I was convinced that it was a doctor. I heard all of the... Now, I think that the unfortunate thing about this, and luckily we'll have more stories to kind of flesh this out, though, is there is a lot of dimensions to the Ninth Doctor. And in that short one series season that Eccleston had with the role, he showed us a broad range of the character and the emotion. And we unfortunately don't get a lot of that range here. We get a lot of quote-unquote doctorisms, things that you would expect the Ninth Doctor to say and do. So over the course of 3 stories, he's very much that same doctor, and there doesn't seem to be the broader range that I know that Eccleston has done with the Ninth Doctor. So I was a little lamenting a little more, variation on the Doctor, but as I said, we're just getting started, and hopefully there's a lot more to kind of explore those different moods and depth to that character that he brought to it. But I was sure very pleased with Eccleston's performance.
Yeah, his performance was fantastic. I felt sometimes, however, that the characterization wasn't quite right, the way that he was written. Maybe it's my own preconceived notions of what this Doctor is, and it's been probably too long since I've watched season 1. But over the course of the first series, I always felt that because of his interactions with Rose and all of the things he goes through with her, helps him, kind of rediscover his humanity, and he lets him lose some of the baggage that was on his shoulders from the Time War. And it feels like none of that baggage is there in this, or not a lot of that is there. So it feels very much like an end-of-run Eccleston as opposed to pre-Rose Eccleston,
right,
or Ninth Doctor. So it's, at times, even though Eccleston was doing a fantastic performance and doing such a good job, and I felt like the Ninth Doctor, it just didn't feel like the right Ninth Doctor for that time period. And I think that's more down to the writing than the acting.
Yeah.
That's a valid point, because unfortunately with only the one season and the fairly linear storytelling within that season, there's not a lot of opportunity to squeeze extra stories in.
Especially without Rose.
Yeah. You have to do either pre-Rose or possibly when he leaves and then immediately comes back and says, oh, by the way, did I mention it travels in time? It's a cheat, but yeah, you could squeeze a whole bunch of adventures into that one trip, and you can come back and meet her at the pier 5 seconds later.
There's already been 2.
Squeeze that one.
Well, there's been 2.
Yeah.
Beast of Babylon, which was one of the Puffin e-books that we read in the 50th anniversary year, was set in that moment between him leaving Rose and coming back. And there's also another story called Little Rose Riding Hood from Time Lord Fairy Tales that is from, it's not all set specifically there, but there's an element of it that is told from that perspective in that moment between. So,
hey, there's a comic, isn't there? Or am I wrong on that? I thought we had read a comic issue that maybe was set in there as well.
No, I don't think so. I think everything else has been the Forgotten, I would think was his part in the Forgotten was in between a couple of stories, I think, but not within that moment, as I was saying.
Okay.
So. Well, let's see. Andrew Curley, who authored the Complete Adventures that I like to consider, only has those 2 stories in there as well. So, and he has Ravagers set almost right before Rose, although I'm sure a lot of those that span will grow in there. But the only other thing he has is the What I Did on My Holidays by Sally Sparrow is right before Rose. because the original book was the Ninth Doctor instead of the 10th. So
I'd almost have to go back to rewatch the first couple of episodes to see what his mood and attitude is kind of like. And of course, depending on where the Big Finish leaves the Ninth Doctor at their end of their box sets, maybe that would also tie into Rose and set his mood correctly, even though, he may have had ups and downs throughout all of this, kind of like he does in the first season. So I'm hopeful that they'll keep that in mind as they go forward.
I mean, I know what you're saying. I don't think he needed to be moody or brooding in this story. So I don't know. Like I say, I saw an element of the Ninth Doctor that was very familiar in these stories. I just don't think there was a broad enough range of the like the Doctor that was dealing with the aftermath of the Time War that maybe should be there. But I don't know.
Well, and maybe that's the key. Maybe it's, yes, the Ninth Doctor is still dealing with the aftermath of the Time War, but when he's adopted this is, happy-go-lucky, I'm going to go save the universe because that's what I do phase, and it's not until that he meets and begins to trust in Rose that he opens up to her exclusively, and that's when we get let in on it. As you said, there's a lot of facets to it, and it's a complicated character. So I agree with Keith that I think that, it doesn't quite feel early, but yet I trust in Big Finish enough to go, I can make allowances for why it doesn't feel that way, or I could headcanon it away.
I think another allowance that I can have for it is the story as a whole doesn't give you much time to breathe. So there's not much time to think about those sort of things for the Doctor. In fact, that to its detriment, I think the story bounces a little bit from place to place a little too quickly. I think we don't spend enough time in certain areas long enough. In some places we sort of dwell a little longer than I think was necessary. So, but I think that because there's so much going on and the Doctor's attention is so diverted, that might be one good excuse for why we get this version of the Ninth Doctor that we get throughout this, is because all of this is a distraction for everything that's come before and everything that'll come after this. And so maybe because it is so fast paced, and maybe because there's so much going on here, in fact, a little bit of the story is a little convoluted, to be honest, and that leads to the sporadic nature of here and bouncing from here to there and whatnot as well. But that might be an excuse for why, I suppose.
That's true. And, the stakes of it are pretty high, and the universe is ending because of these issues. So he's focused on the problem. He's not dwelling on what happened in the past.
Yeah.
It was just a small little thing that bugged me a little bit. It wasn't enough to take me out of the story completely or make it so I didn't enjoy the story. It's
right.
Something I noticed.
What do you think of Audrey's arc? And by that I mean landing us in this idea of she's the bad guy, only to bring us around almost full circle to almost a misguided misguided hero. Not even a hero, but a misguided path for somebody. What do you guys think of her story?
I thought it was a little too telegraphed, that she was, trying to do something good and stop what was happening. But even though it was a little telegraphed, I did like it. I liked that it wasn't a black and white, good versus bad sort of situation. She was doing bad things in an attempt to do good things. And I like that complexity that they included with her.
I agree, because so many times the bad guy will be somebody most of the time, is this megalomaniac and power grab, greed driven bad guys. And while I think there's a moment where you suspect that she's that type, they do kind of spin it in a different way, and take you away from that. You realize, okay, well, I see why she had to go down this road. And it, it's not everything it seems. And so I agree. I kind of liked that too. I too thought it was maybe a little predictable, but I liked it.
I think the only reason that it came across maybe as predictable is because of the convoluted nature of the plot with the time stream jumping and the nonlinear storytelling. Like I said, being let in on it early that this probably is going to be the Doctor's fault.
Yeah.
And then once you latch onto that idea, then it becomes fairly easy once we're given any glimmer that Audrey may not be the mustache-twirling megalomaniac, villain of the piece. Then it's like, oh, she actually is trying to help. And the more time we spent with her in her ghost doctors, why won't you talk to me? Why won't you, do this? It became more and more obvious that she's doing something that is not villainous. She's doing something that is actually, it may be misguided. It may be that it's not working, but there's something at work here that's not evil. So I appreciate that. I enjoy villains when they're not villains. I mean, I enjoy villains for the sake of villains too. I don't need everybody to have a tragic backstory. But I like it when you make them more human, as it were, that there is a method to their madness.
Yeah, and I think that the story does a good job also of making the Ghost Doctor be very mysterious and almost nefarious from the point of view that we're getting it from Audrey. Is you don't quite trust the Phantom Doctor that she's communicating with. Until the end, when it makes more sense in a more linear fashion for us. It makes a lot more sense, and he doesn't sound as nefarious. So I appreciated the idea that it was very unnerving how the Doctor was presenting, or the Ghost Doctor was presenting himself, till you find out that through the series of events, it was, when you saw it from his perspective linearly, it made more sense, and I liked that as well. I thought that was a nice surprise. The one thing that frustrated me immensely about this, and I can understand the whole concept of you can't give away too much information about the future because then you're doomed to ruin or create, paradox or problems. But the story too frequently comes to the point where if she would just tell him more than she's telling him, he wouldn't keep goofing things up. And it almost comes down to the fact that the reason why he keeps messing up is because she's not giving him enough information to go by. And it's like they skirt that line of, okay, the information needs to be fed to him somehow, but we're not going to go quite far enough because we have to drag this out. And so it becomes very frustrating, while again necessary not to tell him so that it becomes very frustrating how frequently that is used as a device of, well, I can't tell you that. It got a little repetitious for me throughout the entire story. And so that was one of the things that frustrated me about the storytelling.
Yeah, there are times where the Ninth Doctor almost feels like he's too set on the idea that once he has made up his mind that, well, you're the bad guy and you're doing something bad and I'm going to stop you, that he doesn't take a hard enough look at the evidence of their conversations, and he has to be hit in the face with it at the very end of the story before he goes, oh, that was actually kind of brilliant, and it's like, yeah, but it's one of those. I get frustrated with these. The movie that I always point to is Changing Lanes with Ben Affleck and Samuel L. Jackson, where there's a minor traffic accident and a little bit of road rage, and these two individuals basically set out to destroy each other's lives, like full on, cyber attacks and wiping out bank accounts, and it just escalates to the point of all either one of you just had to say, yo, dude, sorry. And this would have been over.
Right.
But you keep making those bad decisions. And so things keep asking. And in many ways, the story kind of felt a little bit like that, just because it's like at any point in time, if the Doctor had stopped being so single-minded of purpose and gone, wait a minute. Or if she had said, well, I can't tell you because we're in the wrong order, but what if I said this? You know?
Right. Just
something
a
of that
little
nature.
more of a hint would have helped.
But then we wouldn't have had a 3-episode box set.
No, you're right. And again, I can't fault them for not telling, because I think that's an essential part of time travel storytelling, is you can't give away the answers because you'll mess things up. But it's so frequently happens that it makes you mad that the reason why he keeps screwing things up is because she doesn't give him enough information. And if they had backed off on that a little bit, I probably wouldn't have had as much problem with it.
Now, all she had to say was spoilers, and we would have gone, aww.
Well, and to some extent, if his doggedness of seeing her as the villain does make sense, coming if this is right on the heels of that time more, that he's been fighting the Daleks, where he's just been going up against a villain that's been evil for evil's sake forever. The next villain he would come across, he would probably assume it's the same sort of situation. So I can also cut him a little bit of slack in that aspect of it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah,
I appreciate Nova in a way a lot more now because of that. Because in a way, she is kind of the knock on the door that he's going to open and start to re-experience the joy of the universe as opposed to the darkness. And the fact that, you see that in a way with his relationship with her, that because she's well versed in time travel, he is suspicious, and that it's not until the end when it's like, you're a geek. Nova the nerd. And he actually laughs. He has this very joyous, moment within that kind of allows him to break for just a second. And that's a good thought, Keith.
Yeah.
And I like Nova a lot. I kind of wish she would have continued into the next box set, that she would have become a kind of a quasi mini companion more than just this series, because I thought her character was great. The fact that she was so savvy on time travel already that we didn't have to read all the rules to somebody yet again was kind of refreshing, and someone who could actually keep up and kind of actually at times be a step ahead of the Doctor on some of this sort of stuff. I really appreciated that part of her. And then she had a little bit of Lucy Miller to her too. Sure, maybe it was the accents and just the way she presented her character. It just felt very similar.
I think
I got a little bit of Lucy and a little bit of Ace.
Yeah, she felt tough. She felt kind of hard as nails, and I agree. I didn't hear so much Lucy Miller, but I definitely got an Ace vibe from her.
I appreciated I just like the fact that, she was not, well, ostensibly was not human, was not from Earth anyway. And so later when he's rattling off, oh yeah, I met the lieutenant when blah, blah, blah happened, blah, blah, blah. And her comment, I understood Earth. What a refreshing change of pace.
Yeah. And so I was also kind of slightly disappointed that the version that traveled with him and kind of got unwritten back to a version that didn't get to go with him, and then she stayed behind because of that. So.
Right. I'd like them to revisit the character though down the line and do something in such a way that she has these like ghost or phantom memories of this, and that start unlocking. That would be kind of a cool device. And she runs into the Doctor again, and she's got questions now. Okay, why am I having these false memories about things that didn't happen to me? I think that would be kind of a neat concept to explore later down the line.
Yeah, it would be.
Overall, I applaud the effort of bringing the Ninth Doctor back. I applaud the device in which they brought him back. I wish the story had been a little more concise and a little better. I wish there wasn't as many contrivances in it. But I think overall, Eccleston hits the ground running, does a fantastic job. I think all of the performances were good. Solid companion, solid antagonist. We'll call her an antagonist now. So those things were the strengths of it. It just too bad the story in itself couldn't support all of those things that were great about it.
Yeah, there were a lot of winning moments. Creepy robots and cute drones.
I thought the universe-eating Ravager things were kind of a. I don't think it's something that was completely original because it's kind of shades of things that have come before. But I thought it was a good concept for a story, and having to hold them back by influencing their, feeding their hunger with these kind of manufactured games. I thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
It's almost a bait and switch because, especially in the first story, we're given a lot of information about the Sphere of Freedom and this evil conglomerate that's, making all this money off of the game players.
Right.
And it feels almost, Vengeance on Varos, or what was the other one with the... it feels kind of like it's moving in that direction where it's just, okay, this is what we're here to do, is topple this. And very quickly, that is all abandoned as we get into the time travel shenanigans and the bigger reveals of what's behind this. And so then by the time the third story rolls around, that is little more than just, it was a means to an end.
Right.
Because we're using this to subsidize this.
Right.
But yeah, in a way, it just almost feels like there was more story there that just kind of got left by the wayside. Maybe not.
See, maybe
we got just enough to explain it.
I appreciated that about it, is the fact that it made you think of it as one thing and then left it and got away from it for all of the stuff that happens in Cataclysm to come back around and then say, oh, by the way, this is what this was and this is why this was. I kind of liked that concept. That to me was just enough to make those two pieces of it work.
And the idea of the time eddies scooping people up and dropping them off random places is is a really neat idea too. Dealing with Centurions in 1953 England. That's that could have been a bit more fleshed out of a story too, but it was used just enough to really kind of help demonstrate that things are going really wrong.
Right.
And just me, or I'm a little disappointed. Not one time scoop reference. That we've got these eddies doing this, and it's like, oh well, this is kind of just like that. We have the Roman centurions running around London, and at no point in time, and he realizes once he gets to the sphere that this is a much bigger deal with a lot of displaced people. But there's no war games.
No war games reference, yeah, because it has a war games vibe at that point, yeah.
Now we did get the what does he say to her in the street? Sorry, must dash. So we did lift a bit of dialogue from the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah,
but. I kept waiting. I was like, here comes that fan moment. We're going to... Nope. Drove right past that exit.
Which is strange in a story coming from Nicholas Briggs.
I know, right?
But it also fits the Ninth Doctor's era. I mean, RTD was putting Easter eggs in and references like that, but they weren't very heavy-handed or very obvious right away.
That's true. They were very subversive.
It's not until Tennant's era that he starts getting more bold with them.
Yeah.
It's not like he brought back the Macra.
Or the Autons, or the... Well, anything else on this before we talk about what's coming up on the schedule? Well, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Looking forward to more.
Well, the reason that we popped this on is because I will let slip that Big Finish has another Ninth Doctor box set coming out soon that we plan on having on the schedule in August, near the time it's released. So we thought, well, we probably should get caught up, and unlike other Big Finish things, that won't take us 17 seasons of audios to get caught up. So you can look forward to more Ninth Doctor soon. But in the meantime, next week we're going to jump back to the First Doctor. It is the First Doctor, isn't it? Or am I mistaken? It's the Second Doctor.
The Second Doctor.
Which Doctor?
Second
Doctor.
Second Doctor.
We'll jump back to the Second Doctor's time frame with the Space Pirates. As we conduct one of our Lost in Time reviews, we will be looking at the recon of that episode, because unfortunately not all of it exists, along with the novelization, as chosen by you, our faithful listeners. And the following week, do we want to, have we talked about this in any depth at all, or just kind of left it nebulous? Episode 500.
Yeah, it's been kind of nebulous. We can talk about it.
Do you want to tell them what's coming up?
Well, yeah, this will be our Husical the Musical, and I didn't come up with that name, Sean did. But we're going to be examining some music over the years, starting way back in the 1960s, and even coming up to almost more present day. It's music inspired by or directly related to Doctor Who, and we're going to be talking about some of the more famous stuff, and maybe even a few that you haven't heard of. And we're going to talk about how the Doctor Who universe has affected pop culture, and specifically in music. So that'll be our 500th Rockin' Review anniversary.
I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. The needle drops will be fire. Look at me being all hip. Other things to keep an eye out for. We have some more Lethbridge Stewart on the docket with a book review. The Eighth Doctor returns and some more Big Finish adventures. Obviously, we still have half a year of celebrating the 50th anniversary of The Master. So we will be taking a look. Next up on that page, I think, is the Missy box set from Big Finish, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
We have some Torchwood coming your way. Just all kinds of good stuff. And then at some point in time, the series is supposed to return this year. I keep hearing that.
Right.
Supposedly.
Eventually.
Allegedly.
Well, be sure to follow the website, travelingthevortex.com, for updates on that and the schedule. And if you get any value out of the podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on our Patreon link. And then also please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to podcasts. It helps bump us up in the ratings and recommendations for others. Gets the word out for our show.
And if you're so inclined, give us a review on all of those, not just the one that you listen to us on. You know.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Why not spread the wealth?
All right, well, if that's going to do it, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.